Hello, Mary.
Good morning.
How are you superstar? You well?
Yes, I'm going well, and work's going well too. With Tara's 30, give me 30 minutes a day.
Oh, you're
It's
fantastic.
going very well.
30 minutes is all you need, isn't it? Unbelievable. Oh, look, we've got Doug in.
Hello.
Doug, good early morning in Adelaide. How are you going, brother?
Oh, good. It's a bit cold.
It's a bit cold. That's fantastic. And Paul's in very, very early in the morning, so I can actually properly introduce Paul to Doug, Doug to Paul. So you two, I really should have a beard, Sophia. I think we all need a bit of beard work, I think. Oh, thanks for that, Paul. Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. And Paul, I was going to ask you, what's the guitar, the turquoise guitar on your back wall? What is that?
It's a bass guitar.
Yeah, what brand is it? Because it's an Ibanez shape, but what is it? Oh,
It's a Fender Mustang, it's called.
Oh, that's Paul. That's impressive. Because of course the Ibanez took that off. So I just wanted to check. But of course you wouldn't have the knockoff. You would have the real. Oh, that's a beautiful. That's a beautiful thing, Paul, can I say? And Jamie Quinton, when he sees this delayed, oh, show us that one too. Show us that one. Do a show and tell. What's the other one, Paul?
It's a Hofner, and I know you're a Beatles fan.
I was going to say it's a Hof. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness me! What do you think of it, Paul? As a bass?
It's all right. Yeah, it's very fragile.
Yes.
But yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's good.
Oh, that is absolutely
more of a showpiece, really. I don't let my 5-year-old anywhere near it. But
no, look, I know the Hof is a great bass, but you always wonder. It's like the Rickenbacker, and you know I'm obsessed by Rickenbackers. I have Rickenbackers. But you always wonder if you took the hype away from the Beatles, the caliber of the actual instrumentation.
For sure.
Is the question. So I don't know the answer to that. That's terribly exciting. So I need to also log our Zoom user, our mystery Zoom user. I'm just waving at you. If you're wanting to be invisible, you can be invisible. And silent if you require. That's okay. That's fine. So colleagues, it's lovely to see you. So Sophia, how are you going, my darling?
Good morning.
Good
I'm
morning.
very well, thank you.
Well, after last week's thrill and fabulousness, that's just terrific, darling one. So, look, colleagues, do you want to start? Are there any questions that we want to start with for the week? I've got a thing to talk through that we've been sort of bubbling about for the last few weeks. But Nadika, for example, is there anything you'd like to talk about this week to start us off, my darling?
Good morning. I think these days I'm facing some difficulties with the corrections in thesis because I am in Sri Lanka. My previous first supervisor never replied for any mail. So in absence, sometime actually second supervisor become my first supervisor, she replied. So emotionally and when back to country, it is very difficult thing in Sri Lanka. So I wanted to discuss how this situation tackle after coming back country. There is several things around me because in personal I have to set up everything.
Yes.
And the emotionally, how tackle it, or what is the strategies can be used for that.
Oh, Nadika, very, very well said. And obviously, Mary and Sophia is our expert on this. So we'll go to Sophia shortly. And I'm sure our Zoom user has expertise as well. So Zoom user, if you want to say hi at any time, you do that. So Nadika, I think there's a few things to talk about there. And it's such a great question. The first realization, I think, Nadika, is that there are many PhDs in a PhD. There's sort of the first year when it's bright and fabulous and magnificent, and then the second year, which is a bit of a slog, the difficult middle child, and then the third year when you're just exhausted. But what people then don't talk about is you submit. And the emotional roller coaster you go through during the submission period is devastating because you're exhausted. And then you've got the stress of the examination, and then the examiner reports come in. And these are all very, very different stages. So it's completely understandable that you're going through this weird sort of cyclone of emotions. So recognize that every bit of the PhD is different. There are many PhDs in every singular PhD. But the second thing, Nadika, you need to do when you're doing the corrections, and Sophia can have a good focus go on this in a second, but what you've got to do, I would argue, is park the emotions. So I'm getting a big nod from Sarah there. Come on, Sarah. And Kate's there as well. So Nadika, what you've got to do is, it's an incredibly emotional thing, but the emotions make this complicated, rigorous process even worse. And I'm aware, particularly with the volatility of higher education at the moment, that the supervisors you started with are probably not the supervisors you finished with, and they may not be able to get you home through the corrections. So again, that's a challenge. So Nadika, park the emotions, then summon the reports themselves, Nadika. And in the table, because I know you're at Flinders University, on the table, list examiner one, what their issue was and how you've addressed it, and literally do it like you're doing a recipe. Do it one line at a time and address them. And the key, Nadika, is, I know it's emotional because you're feeling like you're being, there it is. That's brilliant. So when you're doing it, you're feeling like you're judged. It's like sort of reviewer 2 on steroids. It's like, and you just feel like sort of there's a knife to your gut at every correction that you're making. But what I'd say to you, Nadika, is park the emotion, do it one at a time like you're doing a difficult recipe, and then at the point that that's finished, let it go. Send it to your second supervisor. They are able to sign it off, and then you go through the administrative process and it's signed off by the dean. So Nadika, it's about being dispassionate in a really volatile, emotional time. And we all know, and Sophia can talk about this, that the final 6 months of a PhD, then the examination, is a highly emotional time. And the students, I think, that get lost and have so many challenges in that final period is they just can't manage the emotion. It's not that they can't do it. It's not that they're brilliant, but they let the emotions get the better of them. So what I try and do, and colleagues that followed me on my last video series, I use the windshield wiper a lot emotionally. So I saw Doug nod there. So in other words, when I'm going, I'm overwhelmed. This is a shambles. I had to get a Northern Territory driver's license and get my motor vehicle done. Can I say I nearly had a heart attack? Right? So I was having to do yogic breathing in the queue, right? But then I forced myself to go to do, you know what? It's a thing. The emotions are not helping this situation. Windscreen wiper the emotions away and focus on the task at hand, and you're through quickly. Sophia, do you want to offer commentary on that? If I've over-egged or under-egged something, can you talk to us about that?
Oh, I mean, look, I'm only just slightly ahead of you, Nadika, in the process. I just submitted my corrections on Monday. So I can't tell you whether that was successful or not yet, though. So hold the applause. It might all be a disaster still. But two things that my supervisor said that for dealing with that emotional reaction. One is, so I was quite upset with some of the changes that I was told to make, and my supervisor pointed out that you can embargo your thesis until you've got your book out, and no one ever has to read the thesis. If you think that the revisions you've been asked to do are going to ruin it and make it rubbish, you just have to do them anyway, and then no one necessarily is ever going to read it. And the second thing was just to, again, I don't know if this is helpful, but I found it helpful to take a really positive tone in writing that table, because even when I was feeling very negative, I would say, thanks to the examiner's feedback, I have strengthened this chapter by blah, 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 and just reframing that even if I felt like it necessarily wasn't actually strengthening the chapter, it did help me to sort of force myself to put it into a positive frame, even if I didn't feel very positive about it. So I don't know if that's helpful, Nadika, but I really feel for you, and I hope that you can get through it without suffering too much.
Oh, brilliant. Nadika, does that help, darling?
Yeah, it is very helpful. And what my current supervisor advised the first time, she wrote me, go through the Tara's blog. This is, you need to read it, your chat, and actually it is very helpful.
Yeah, it is a challenging issue, and we did end up doing a video on it. One of the series. There's been so many now. I was a different person, Nadika. But can I say it is a real challenge that no one talks about, because people go, you're above the line, you've got a 1, 2, 3, you've done fantastically, you know, move on. And part of me, I sort of grasp that, but also we have to grasp that we've got a colleague that this is their first big piece of work, that 2 or 3 international people have assessed it, and they've had to manage the emotions of this very hot and intimate, in many ways, review of one's work. And in the Australian system, it's almost worse, because you haven't got an oral exam where the examiners sort of have to front up and look at you. And that's the point, isn't it, Paul and Sarah? We're going to go straight to you in a second. So, Paul, of course, the thing is, if someone says the unsayable, then they're going to have to front up at a desk and look at you after having said the unsayable. Now, in the Australian system, still, sadly, in many universities, Paul, there's this notion that you can be a bit of a keyboard warrior, right? So it's like, oh, I didn't like chapter 3. And they never actually have to front the person up and go, when Sophia says, right, well, you offered a commentary about chapter 3. I did this, this, and this for these reasons. What was the issue with that? And they never have to respond. So, Sophia, beautifully done. Nadika, that might help you. But as I said, just treat it as a compliance protocol. I'm in the excellence business, I hope, but I'm very well aware that excellence is based on compliance. So at this point, go through compliance and then aim for excellence after it's over. How's that? Does that suit?
Yeah.
That is fantastic.
Yeah,
now Sarah was going straight in. Sarah, you and I clearly were married in a previous life. How are you going? What's your vibe on that examination thing and the wins?
Well, I don't really have a position on it, except I was in a meeting the other day, and my friend in Uni SA has just completed her Viva. Uni SA, South Australia are doing Vivas. What on earth? Can you give us some information about that?
Look, it's an interesting one. Obviously, I've been multiple deans. I've had multiple personalities, Sarah. So it's like, your career's too long when you've had multiple jobs that are the same job with different titles. So about a third of the Australian universities now have an inverted commas oral exam. But as someone who has participated a few times in these oral examinations, including, can I say, one particularly memorable mess for a group of 8 university, can I say, their oral exam was an absolute mess. I think an oral exam is a great thing. I do. I think it's a great thing. I believe in it. I've taught people how to do it. I've done it in the UK, done it in the North American system. It's a great thing. When it's not a great thing is when inexperienced examiners are coming to the Viva, because they can do real damage. So it can be an abuse structure. So the last thing we need is inexperienced people. And those of us that have been through the Australian system and seen behaviours in confirmations of candidature in the first year, I get a little bit frightened when those people might be unleashed to do an oral exam, but still moving on. So we need some training for the examiners. And also, Sarah, what we really need is some very clear regulations on examination. Because
But it's still a thing though, right? It's still coming in. We should be expecting it.
Oh, yes, it is coming in. It is absolutely coming in. But again, as with, in Aotearoa, New Zealand, all the 8 universities now have an oral examination, Sarah. I would argue, however, that in some of those universities, it wasn't implemented properly. And we might explain what properly looks like. And again, in the Australian system. So, for example, Sarah, what happened in that group of 8 university is that the examiners had to specify for the student all the questions that they would answer, and they couldn't go beyond the script. So from my perspective, why then have an oral exam, right? And so that created all sorts of problems for the candidate. So Sarah, I'm the biggest believer in it, but you've got to have, I would argue, a year or so to train up people and to be very, very clear, because in the Australian system, sadly, most Australians are not examining internationally as much as they should. So they haven't had the experience. And so, for example, people like me as deans, we need to be running mock examinations to teach people how to do it. So I'm very excited and happy about this, but I need a run-up of a year to have a very expansive training, not only for CDU, but any colleagues in the country that would like to come along. Hello, Helene. Are you okay, Helene?
Hello, good morning.
Good morning,
I'm
gorgeous.
sorry.
No, that's great. No worries.
Yeah.
So Sarah,
Yeah,
that's what I think.
it's a 3 a.m. here, so it's
No,
morning for me.
Good morning. It's great. It's great to hear your fabulous voice. Brilliant. But Sophia, I wonder, with oral examinations, would that have made a difference in terms of you, I'll use the word healing yourself, or would it have made it worse?
No, that's a really interesting question, because a lot of the issues with issues is maybe isn't the right word. A lot of the examiners' criticisms were things that were like, these results aren't reproducible. And of course they weren't, it was a textual analysis. So they were just kind of coming from a really different perspective. So in one way, it would have been good to maybe be able to just talk to that and say, oh, look, at, it's meant to be entirely subjective, really. I mean, like, it's more about the persuasive force of the rhetoric than anything else. But on the other hand, I can see that could devolve very quickly into argumentativeness, which obviously you don't want to do to an examiner. So yeah, I'm not sure, actually.
Yeah, and what you should have, for example, and that was part of my conversation with Sarah, is the importance of an independent chair. So every single oral exam must have this independent chair who's taking notes about the process, and just before something goes a bit off rails or a bit bonkers, that they hem the situation in and bring it back. But Sophia, what I think happened in your case is an examiner was selected that, to use my policy language, was not in affinity with the thesis, and one of the requirements of an examiner is they are in affinity with the thesis. Yeah, and the overwhelming majority of paradigms are not reproducible in terms of data sets. Experimental science is, absolutely, some of the applied sciences are, but most disciplines are not, and that's cool. Yeah, fantastic. Kate, how are you? We've just seen your fabulousness. Well, the nurses are in, so we can start our day, really. So Kate, how are you faring, because you're obviously under examination at this point?
I want it to hurry up. I keep checking Insight at Flinders Uni email every day, but it's Insight's down, so I don't know if there's something there for me or not. But what I don't know if I've mentioned before that I'm now studying to become an academic editor. Oh my goodness. It's so hard. So much of English language I thought I was quite good at and good at writing. Nah, I'm rubbish when I read what I have to learn. But otherwise I'm good. I've got masses of work, masses of legal work.
Yeah.
Don't ever go into a hospital here without taking somebody, a clinical nurse consultant or a nurse who knows what they're talking about, because there's so many mistakes. We've got, they say no staff, but we actually have a lot of staff.
I'll talk to you, Kate.
We do have a lot of staff in Australia, but 2 years ago, our Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, terminated thousands of them across the country because they would not be jabbed. But I keep writing on Twitter, please reinstate the thousands of nurses instead of bringing untrained people from overseas. I mean, we can have them as well, but our hospitals need the trained registered nurses with
They do.
years of experience.
They do.
So do our aged care facilities.
They do, Kate. I wouldn't make a decision. I wouldn't go into a hospital without you, Kate, just so you know. Mind you,
I'll be there.
I don't pay a bill. I don't restock my refrigerator without talking to Kate first. So, but Kate, it's a good point that we need a understanding, and Wendy, you might want to speak to this, the importance of a healthcare workforce and understanding the importance of bringing in magnificent human beings from around the world who add so much to our system, respecting our Australian and Aotearoa New Zealand trained nurses, and creating a proper communication system and strategy for our healthcare professionals. It's remarkable, and it's so important, Wendy.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
Sorry, Wendy.
You go for it, Kate.
Minister for Health here, young woman. She's the Minister for Aging and Sport.
Cool.
So are we going to get all our oldies pole vaulting in the nursing homes, or what?
Well, I'd like to see my father pole dancing. I'd like pole vaulting, but I'd like to see him do a bit of a stretch. I'd like to see that. No,
so
but
we have ministers who do not know anything about the subject they're supposed to be in charge of. I've written to her, she ignores me. I get deleted from Twitter all the time. And I've got to be careful because they can deregister me here for being a big mouth. But by the way, Eunice sends her apologies today.
Give her my love. No, I've been in touch with Eunice this morning. But Kate, you are the stroppy person we all want to be. I want to grow up to be you, as I've said so often, Kate. But I mean,
and I'm a whistleblower, you know that.
And that honesty and integrity and rigor should be the foundation of all of our professional systems. But Wendy, what's your perspective on, obviously I'm obsessed, I'm doing some fantastic work with midwives this week. It's been sort of the midwife week, which has been terrific. But what's your perspective on building up a really strong health and education really, but health workforce in Australia at the moment?
Look, at the moment, we're really struggling with the numbers of nurses and the numbers of skilled nurses in the hospital. I'm lucky I'm on leave at the moment, but from what I've heard, it's pretty hellish at work. And bringing people from overseas into Australia, it depletes the overseas workforce. So we're doing them a great disservice by doing that. The other problem is it takes, at least 12 months or more to get them here, get them through all the various hoops they have to jump through. So it's not a quick process. It's not a quick fix that you can, phone a friend and bring over 30 nurses from wherever to fill a hospital.
And we need everything, don't we? We want an international quality healthcare sector, but we have to be much more respectful. As someone who has moved around the world, it's tough to do that, can I say? It's tough to do that. But Helen, you rock. Can we go? Helen, darling, talk to us. Wendy, well done, mate. That's given me something to think about in my meetings this afternoon. Helen, what can I do to help you? What's your viable question for the week, my love?
Yes, it's my first semester at university. Yes, and I am a PhD student, but I wish to enroll in university where the rank is high, but I wasn't able to get acceptance in high-ranking university. So, I just wonder whether the rank of university really matter in the quality of the PhD or not, because I'm a bit worried. And should I continue on my this PhD, or should I pursue a higher rank university to do it, because I want to make a benefit from it? Okay. And
oh, Helen, it's a wonderful, complicated area, and I can see Sarah and I smiling at each other through that conversation. Look, Helen, the point of a PhD, and the reason I continue to be in these dean roles in graduate studies and graduate research, because it's a privilege of a job. The reason we do this is so that a PhD that's granted at any university in the world is equivalent. So the reason we do this, if you get a PhD from the University of South Australia, or you get it from the National University of Singapore, wonderful university, any of the universities, that people can see a PhD on a CV and we all know what that means, wherever one has got it from. And that is true. The second thing I would say to you is that the notion of the ranking of the universities, I mean, my goodness me, just so you know, sort of 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, no one cares. I still don't care. It's about the caliber and the quality of the work, right? And so, Helene, what I'd say to you is I did my research master's degree at a posh university, Paul, the equivalent of a Russell Group, but I left that for one of the sort of trendy 1960s universities because that was the interdisciplinary, post-disciplinary place where cultural studies was magnificent. So there might be the ranking of the institutions, but you also need to have attention to where great work in particular disciplines is taking place. And then, of course, thirdly, where there are great staff. And I would always actually start with the third. So who is a supervisor that you want to work with? And that's the number one, the most important question. Who is this? Because they will write you a reference for the next 30 years. They will move around and they will care for you the best they can. So, Helene, it's about the supervisor, if you like the reputation of the supervisor, but the relationship with the supervisor, because this is about 30 years. It's not about 3.
So what you're saying, Tara, is to find the energy of the field, where are the actions happening?
Yeah, and Sarah, as you and I know, and look, I'll get your expertise on this. The energy of the field, how great is that? I'm putting that on a t-shirt. The energy of the field, it varies enormously. It's, you know, what is, I mean, I'll use the example of the legendary and now sort of really tragic Murdoch University. Murdoch University, when I did my PhD in cultural studies, that was in the top 5 cultural studies universities in the world. And then in 2003, the Deputy Vice-Chancellor and Vice-Chancellor deleted cultural studies from the university, deleted it. It was in the top 5 in the world, and they deleted the field. So no longer is cultural studies a big deal at Murdoch University because it's not taught. So Helene, does that give you some sense where Sarah and I are at, that it's about the energy of the field, and that does change. So you need to pick your moment, get a great supervisor, get the match of, you've got great librarians, you've got great professional development programs, all sorts of things are important, far beyond the ranking of the university. That, I know people are desperate to sort of get involved in the ranking of journals and the ranking of institutions and rank. How about you start with integrity and you finish with integrity, and it's a PhD, it's got quality assurance around the world, that'll do. Am I helping, Helene? And then we'll go to Paul, because Paul will offer advice on that. Helene, is that helping?
Yes, thank you. Yes.
So start and finish, my darling. A half-completed PhD is not worth anything. Those of you that know Western Australia, my former home of Fremantle is populated by people enrolled in a PhD, okay? They never finish, but they drink a lot of coffee and they talk about being enrolled in a PhD, okay? So the key is to finish. Paul, do you want to offer a comment on the ranking and the Russell Group and all this sort of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it's like where you guys are, but in the UK, there's a real, and from further education, which is college level, into undergraduate, which is, the first degrees in universities, there's a real grade chasing situation we've got in the UK. And so students are kind of, through the schools and colleges, are really kind of owned to chase these Russell Group universities and really chase the top grades, where actually a lot of what I'm trying to impart, and we're in a post-92 kind of polytechnic turned university, so college turned university, but actually for the arts and creative arts, it's exactly where some of the best research is happening at the moment, some of the best work is happening as a practical subject. And that's more important. That's what we're trying to get across, is actually, yes, we're not within the top 50 of the universities generally, but actually within the arts, some of the work that we're creating and the interdisciplinary work and the research is really interesting, and actually for the students it's more beneficial than going to Oxford, Cambridge and getting a drama degree that actually is no more beneficial than going to your local regional university that I'm at. So yeah, I'm really definitely pushing for our area, is our post-92 universities is actually, that's where the hard graft is happening, and it's not a status thing that people are relying on. We're actually working quite hard to get where we're at now.
Absolutely. And for post-disciplinary, interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary fields, the post-92s are where it's at, as far as I'm concerned. And the RAE and the REF showed that. So in those cross-panel assessments, Nottingham Trent did better than Nottingham. A whole series of the London universities did much better than Imperial in particular fields.
For sure, yeah. I mean, University College London is one of the most superb universities in London now, and Oxford Brookes is ranking better at times than Oxford University. And you know, you've got all these subsidiaries that are much better.
Oh, fantastic!
Well, I'm a big advocate. Go for the smaller work hard universities. That you'll get some of the best research, the keenest research, and the most stimulus out of them.
I think that's powerful, and we've had to work hard, Helen. So when we work in these universities, you'll get to know the staff much more effectively. You will be taught by us. So just like, for example, at CDU, I am the dean, but I work directly with the students. That's what you're going to get. There's no sort of hiding behind a swipe card or a secretary or any of that stuff. We deal with people directly. Is that helping, Helen?
Yes, so much. Thank you.
You've got it. So just start and finish. Now, Sarah, where did I go wrong there? Are you comfortable with what Paul and I just said there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've had that experience. So, well, do you know what? I don't want to go any further because I'm a failed PhD student from Fremantle.
Hey, what are you doing? You're not from Fremantle, Kate. Yeah, but so Sarah, but you were one of those, but darling, there are thousands of them. But that's because all this attention was invested in the enrollment and not how we get people through.
Exactly. And so now I'm a lady of a certain age, and I've traveled a little bit, and I've been working in the HE sector for a while. I do see where the action's happening. And what Paul said was, you find it's. I'm after a great experience, and I'm after a nest of people who are going to look after me, hold my hand, and take me through the journey. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah. And so when I'd been doing literature reviews, you can do your literature review, but you find your people and you find where they are, and you find out which conferences they go to, and they meet each other. And I've pinpointed my people. They're in Sydney, in the Sydney Wollongong area, they're linguistics. But it took me a bit of a process where I could do my field, educational linguistics. I could do that here, but like your experience where we had a great linguistics department here in Darwin, and then suddenly the rug got pulled underneath us and it got completely disbanded. They've decided to reinstate our linguistics, which is great, but there's a whole culture that's missing now. So that's why I'm more inclined to work with people that are already set up and ready to go in Sydney.
Yeah, and I mean, and Sarah, your experience, never worry or be frightened about you had a go at a PhD and it didn't happen and we're going again. That half the people that start don't finish, and half. So when I'm talking with students, I cannot stress the importance of a supervisor that can finish you, because anyone. I remember my wonderful late husband, Steve Redhead, and I, we always used to talk about the first year was great, Sarah. It's exciting. It's like the first blush of romance. You're drinking coffee and you're thinking and talking great thoughts, and oh, it's beautiful. And then it gets real and you got a mortgage and like the plumbing explodes and, then everything goes wrong, right? And so it's the supervisors who can get the people through the difficult times, who actually have the history of completion, not starting, but completing. Completing a thesis and starting a thesis are two completely different entities. Oh, I get a nod. Fantastic. And I see the legend that Sue Charlton is in. Sue, how are you? Oh, I'm loving the skivvy work, Sue. That's great.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. Can you hear me?
I certainly can. I'm so excited I could explode.
Oh, that's good. I was just interested in what you heard, because I'm watching my granddaughter doing a PhD, and she's been through the first year and she's doing it on the NDIS, and she's a disabled person with a very difficult visual problem, but is unable to get any help from the NDIS because she's not considered bad enough to be needing to be helped, but she's just hitting the second year, and I'm just really worried about how she's going with her supervisors. And I think you've hit the nail on the head there. You know, they're not so interested in the completion bit, and they're starting to be very picky about things and change things. And she's getting quite confused about what she's meant to be doing, I think.
Yes. So I've prepared some little documents for our colleagues at CDU. I've put them up on Scribd and made them for free, but about how to reorganize and have discussion points through the thesis. So I might do a little post, send that to you if you're comfortable.
That'd be wonderful. Yes.
And it's no pressure, but it's just making the argument like we do in other relationships, that we have to recalibrate it every 3 or 4 months and do the careful interventions to keep it fresh and meaningful.
Yes, and I think some of the things that she's witnessing, I've heard you talk about before, but I think she's reached the point where she's perhaps read more widely on this subject than some of her supervisors. And she's also got some experience, personal experience, and she's working at Novita, working with children with disability. So she's got quite a lot of personal experience, and I think it's become quite challenging to the supervisors.
Look, it is, and I saw Paul's great point about the young Padawan becomes the Jedi Master. So you remember my wonderful husband Steve used to say, what happens is about halfway through it, about 18 months, the student should know more than the supervisor, right? So you're traveling along and you are the Jedi Master, and then at about 18 months, the student starts discovering through methodology or through epistemology stuff you don't know about. And what the supervisor then does at that point is very telling about the professionalism of that supervisor and the supervisory culture. People who are thrilled with that, and I'm always thrilled. It's like, I've never heard of that scholar. Oh, that's exciting. And then I go and do the homework and get up to date with that. So supervisors should be excited at the 18-month period where a Jedi Master is appearing, right? A Jedi Master is appearing.
Yeah.
But if they're not, then that's a proxy. Thank you, darling. If they're not, that's a proxy for other problems in the relationship, I'd argue.
Yeah. And I'm watching that quite closely, because I think she's getting lots of requests to publish, and I don't think she's being credited with that publication stuff as well as she ought to be either.
We might talk about that in a second, because one issue that's been hanging with us for the last few weeks in these digital office hours is dissemination. So we might have a conversation about that too, Sue. That's brilliant. Chad, can I just go to Chad and say good morning to the fabulous Chad? How are you, Chad?
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. I'm excellent. Great discussion. And I can't agree more that the importance of good supervision is really crucial for any PhD. I've been very lucky to have really excellent supervisors. One thing which stuck to my head the first time I met my principal supervisor, he told me one thing, and I knew he will be the right person. And he told me, we are not publishing poor. We are not going to use you to publish through you. So we are here to help you. And that really gave me a lot of confidence. Another things I think when we're talking about the PhD supervision is we as PhD students, we have to manage our supervisors as well. Prepare things for them, make sure, ask and argue with them as well. You know, they ask you to do something, don't blindly do that, you know, try that and come back to them and say, this doesn't work. I've done that so many times. They asked me to analyze something. I said, this doesn't work. They said, thank you, that's excellent. We know that doesn't work. We move on. So great discussion. I really enjoyed that. So that's my 2 cents to this discussion.
But Chad, that's great. We'll use your expertise in a second, because also, Sue, that's the issue of the relationship between publishing and a PhD. And this is becoming increasingly vexed. Paul, I can't remember it being as big a deal when I was working in England, But in Australia and New Zealand, this is quite hot. And there's all this confusion between publishing refereed papers and a PhD. And you remember this stuff, Sue. And
Yeah.
you can produce a first-rate PhD that does not have one publication out of it to the point it's being examined. Doesn't mean you're not going to get 15 articles out of it. Of course you will, or a book. But there is no relationship between examination and the production of papers. And I think always remember that if there ever is a confusion there, if the supervisor is saying you need to publish, no one's questioning that. Of course you need to publish. But remember, in whose interests are the publications emerging? And that's incredibly important. So my priority is to make sure students have single authored publications and that we're very, very clear on authorship. But it's always important to remember that, you know, and I've seen this in a lot of universities where, and most famously one case, where students were described by the higher ups as, quote, slaves. PhD students as slaves. So, I mean, Sue, you've published on your own, but you and I, for example, have also published together. What advice would you offer people about, looking back on it now, publication and the PhD and that relationship?
Well, I think it's changed in the time that I've been involved with it, because I think there's more a place for publishing in a lot of different mediums now, and that requires a different form of publication. But you have to be careful about how you do that. But you need to be out there in all those mediums to really be considered as expert in the field, I think. And I would say that, I mean, you saved me really in my PhD when you began to supervise me and made me sort of think very clearly about the fact that I was doing the PhD and I was the one having the problems, and they needed to be written about in the PhD, because that was part of doing the PhD and it was part of the subject.
Really?
And I found that really helpful. I've found since I've completed that publishing is more difficult in one way, because our professional body doesn't like us to advertise, and so we can't use some of the social media and things. So it says, but in fact you can these days now. And I've been watching some of your vlogs on that, and I think it's very important to be able to do that.
Yes.
But
Sue,
I'm currently trying to publish an article with 2 orthopedic people, and I'm finding tremendous difficulty with doing that, because it's got to be published in certain journals, and it's got to, you know, it's quite difficult to do.
Yeah, and look, the notion of that ranking of journals I find very amusing. I mean, Paul, when I was working on the RAE and the REF, I always remember at the conclusion of RAE 2008, where the panels reported that and remember that there was peer review, so everyone actually read the work rather than assume that the ranking was a proxy for quality. And they confirmed in the RAE that there was no relationship, none, between the quality of the work and the tiering or ranking of the journal. Now, how often do you hear about that at all? And that was a whole sector, all disciplined analysis. But I mean, Sue, for example, I mean, Sue and I, we worked a lot together. I mean, I adore Sue. But Sue, the challenge that you've got is that you're a great communicator. I mean, for example, that podcast that you and I recorded, I think it's now had 170,000 listens or downloads. I mean, so in terms of dissemination, you're the queen, really. And I suppose, and colleagues, we'll talk about this in future weeks, but the relationship I'd like us to think about in the next few weeks, I call it the dissemination triangle. So it is content, audience, and platform. Content, audience, and platform. And I think everybody's focused on, oh, look, let's just disseminate the content. But actually, you need to start with who. Who do you want to read and engage with your ideas? And once you work out the who, then you can decide on the platform. And it may be a YouTube video, it may be a podcast, it may be refereed articles in the top end of town journals, but you have to start with who's the audience. And once you've got the audience, you can then tailor the content for a particular platform.
And I think that's what I've realized in some sense myself, because I'm really looking for some health promotion reading, not the other health professionals, because they just go, oh no, we don't do that here, this is not what we do here, this is not what we do. But if we can deal with the health promotion individuals and say this is what we should be doing because this is the reason, I think we've got much more chance of getting a good readership.
Well, Sue, if you need to bring in your old supervisor once more, if you want to get the band back together, we can certainly do that. So don't hesitate with that at all. I mean, I've been more with Sue than just about anybody else on planet Earth, haven't I, Sue? Aren't you my #1 co-author? Isn't that unbelievable? I think you are. I think we've lost Sue, but I think you are. I think it's been just a joyous collaboration. So if you want to go again with the old goth, you got a deal, Sue.
Very good. Very good.
Fantastic. And look, I quickly want to go to Donna as well, as we're sort of reaching the end, because Donna's in this terribly moody, fantastically goth environment. And I'm just drawn to it, Donna. I want to be where you are. How you going?
Hello, Kate. Hello. Hello, Tara. I'm Donna, yes. I'm in County Down, Northern Ireland. Just the other side of the world, basically. So, but I feel, Tara, from before I started my doctorate, I watched your videos and they were just so encouraging. The YouTube, it's like forever. I've just secured my candidature, really, I suppose would be what some people would. I'm part-time. I'm at the University of Edinburgh, although I live in Northern Ireland. As I say, I draw a lot of strength from your encouragement. I go out for walks and listen to your podcasts, and it's just about finding community, because I think there's certainly a sense of isolation, and a lot of things have happened to me, like my original supervisor has left, and one girl went on maternity leave, and I do have one supervisor who actually I first encountered as a master's student, and I just got in touch with him because he's in the same field as myself, and he was at Edinburgh and he was so encouraging. Hence I went then to Edinburgh for the doctorate. But Gary is actually retired, so he can't be my main supervisor. So then the person they got has left, and it's just been a wee bit bitty, to be honest with you. And then I think that starts to impact your confidence and just scary stuff. I've got a conference on Monday, folks, so I'm trying to get myself back in the zone, and I've had COVID for 2 weeks and I'm wiped out. So
well, you look magnificent. You look magnificent. But Donna, can I say you've captured there the challenge? Whenever anyone talks about the volatility of higher education, and this, you can see I get quite agitated about this, people forget about the consequences of that on higher degree students. So it's all right to say put people on short-term contracts and all the rest of it, and redundancies and restructures and stuff. But our students, you need us to be stable for 3.5 years. You need to enroll. And that's why Paul said, go to the university where the staff are there to work hard and work with you, right? Because as Donna said, she was ready to go, and then one of her supervisors retired, another one went on mat leave, and just creating, Donna, just try and find one human that is the spine, that is the emotional spine of your candidature, and just walk with them, okay? So they don't have to even be the content expert, but they can be your advocate who walks with you through the 5-6 years of the candidature. Does that help, Donna?
Yeah. Well, you see, Tara, you're actually, you know, we've never even, I've thought of emailing you lots of times and stuff like that. But I mean, I feel as if I really know you because I've watched so much of your stuff. You're so positive. You just, you know, when I'm feeling really down and I listen to you, you just make me bounce back up again. And I, you know, I don't want to sound sycophantic, but that's very sincere, very genuine, not very sincere. You just rock.
Oh, well, you just rock, Donna. And as you might have picked up from my name, I have a whole series of pretty strong Irish connections as well. And my father, when he named me Tara Brabazon, had complete delusions of grandeur, as you can imagine, and named me after what he thought was a magnificent mountain in Ireland, but of course is a tiny little hill, which we won't ever tell him that. He's 95, so he'll never.
Very significant help. And can I tell you, Tara, my daughter is Tara too. I have a Tara.
Well, can I say, Donna, you have clearly changed our lives this morning. To finish off our final bit of the conversation, I'm so quite emotional, Donna. You're just amazing. But Donna, what can we do to help you? Because I think you've raised a crucial point there. You've got to get yourself up to do a conference presentation on Monday. Now, colleagues, what do you do? Because obviously we've all been through, you know, we've got catastrophic sort of work environments, sickness, COVID, all the rest of it. Has anybody got any strategies where they sort of clear themselves up and they're able to go forward with a conference presentation? Anyone got any strategies for this?
We want more information. Donna, can you tell us, have you prepared your PowerPoint yet?
Yeah, well, whenever I had to have my progression panel at the end of March, and I had to do a 10-minute presentation at the start of the progression panel. And I did a PowerPoint presentation, and I've been told I can use that as the basis for the discussion. But I suppose where I'm a wee bit anxious, I guess, is I'm told I've got about 10 minutes. And but I think there's an expectation that, as opposed to it being scripted and you basically, you know, read out, that you actually try to have a discussion with people. So you have bullet points and you talk to those. Now, I did that, and I think it was okay for the progression panel. But this is going to be a whole different situation. It'll be all the other staff and students. And you know, I'm not sure if that's okay if you're a Tara Brabazon and you're very skilled communicator, you're used, you know, going into a situation and being able to talk off the top of your head. I'm just a wee bit worried. Should I be a wee bit more scripted on it?
Donna, and I could see Paul immediately getting in there. Donna, don't think for one moment that I'm a loquacious Brabazon. I mean, yes, you know, I did come out of the vagina speaking. That is clear. Brabazons, we are very active with our brain and mouth connection. But Donna, every speech I do, every video I do is carefully scripted. I read 20, 30 publications. Every word I say in every vlog I've ever done is written down. So I'm not a riffer, Donna, at all. The office hours is great because I can have a conversation, we're having a great time. But for presentations, I actually, and it's interesting, Sarah, I do the PowerPoint last. I script, I time it, Donna. So if it's 10 minutes, you know, wow, you've got to script that pretty tightly. So I'd write it, Donna. I would maybe bullet point it, but I'm happy to write that 10 minutes and then do the PowerPoint. Remember, visual aids respond to the orality. You know, we don't have the visuality and then speak to the PowerPoint. Have the text and then have your PowerPoint slides. I mean, Paul, are you on that? Whenever people say, "Oh, look, don't script," it's
no, I agree.
Yeah,
I guess from my kind of like interest in multimodality, I would agree. The PowerPoint should be the last thing. Your speech is the main thing, and you're responding to the visual aid is a response to that. It's a way to, use another modality of communication to emphasize what you're talking about. So, but if you lead it the other way around, you know, and partly what I teach when I'm teaching teachers is that is actually it becomes quite robotic if it's the other way around, because all you're doing is talking through slides. And absolutely script it. That's you know, and it's knowing that you are the expert in what you're talking about for those 10 minutes, and having that emphasis to know that. And for those 10 minutes, you know, you are the person to listen to. So
Yes.
have that confidence.
Well said, Paul. And also, Donna, if you're not 100%, so, you know, I've had to do, you know, a video every day, every week for like, we're made about 8 years now. Now, remember, that included the day after Steve died, you know, when I basically not had a voice, the day before I got married. And so you know, it's been through the vagaries of life, right? And obviously, Donna, I've been terribly sick and had a voice lost and all the rest of it. But the thing about having, and I've got them here, the thing about having the cards is that this is also an insurance for you, Donna. So if you're not feeling the sharpest, you know on the morning that everything you need is there. And so what that does, Donna, is you've got a percentage. So even if you do the worst version of that you've ever done, you're still at 70% competence. And if you're up for it and you've had an espresso and you're feeling great and you deliver at 98%, that's terrific. But you'll get confidence knowing the lowest you can go is 70%, and it's all organized and off you go. Sarah, do you want to disagree with me? Please disagree with me. But Paul, you rock, brother. So where are you on this, Sarah?
Well, being a teacher of teachers, and it sounds like Paul is too. I'm
a bit.
Yeah, I'm with you, because you have to get your thoughts coherent, and you can only do that through writing. So if you're feeling unwell, Donna, as long as you're mulling it over while you're working up the energy to deliver, and then I would also suggest that you have some way of connecting with the audience so that you know where they're at. So just build that into possibly the first like minute or two. That would be and then that would be a real confidence boost for yourself.
Oh, Sarah, that's great. So Donna, a really provocative question. So a question that you sort of leave hanging as the meta for the entire presentation to hook people in with one of those big questions where people go, I don't know what to think about that. And then in you go. And for 10 minutes, that might be a ripper. What do you reckon, Donna?
Yeah, I think I would certainly feel more confident if I've it, you know, pretty much scripted out, and okay, you can ad-lib to an extent, but you can glance down at the cards. It keeps you on track, and I think I'd feel more confident, particularly in this. I'd literally I had 13 days of testing positive for COVID up until Monday there, and Tuesday's the first day this week when I'm just wiped. I've no energy, and I know I've rambled a bit when I've been very conscious that it hasn't been the most coherent of introductions to you all, but it's just my brain is not functioning as it should do, to be honest. Also, it's the early hours of the morning.
I know you've done fantastically well, can I say? Donna, darling, just one bit of advice from your old golf mate: be kind to yourself too. Look at the nods. Chad has just basically gone bonkers there. Donna, be kind to yourself, darling. The idea that after the COVID experience, you're up and delivering a conference presentation on Monday, that is amazing. And we are all so proud of you, and we are desperate to hear how you go. So let's script the 10 minutes. The idea that you're fronting up and you're facing the table, that's a win. And the only final commentary I offer as we end the end of office hours, I'm a big fan of carbs. So before you go in, and sorry, Sarah, I know you're probably not carbs, but I'm a big carb person. So I'd make sure, get yourself some bread. Have some bread. Have some cheese and some
She's
bread.
from Northern Ireland. She'll have potato bread. She'll have all sorts of bread.
I love farls. I'm the biggest fan of farls. Yeah, get some potato bread with your girlfriend. So yeah, but Donna, the thing is, the research has shown, I'm being weird, but also carbs actually helps brain function. So people have had, like the posh organic stuff for breakfast, and then they've actually assessed them on an exam compared to a McDonald's breakfast, sadly. And the people that have had the McDonald's breakfast have done better on the exam. Now, I'm not recommending McDonald's. I'm recommending carbs. So, darling, have a cup of coffee, have some carbs, have your cards, and whatever you do is brilliant. It's enough.
Pleasure.
Okay.
Thank you.
What's your discipline, Donna?
I'm a social worker.
Yes.
And I'm looking at closed adoption practices in Northern Ireland.
Oh.
I've worked in adoption for 25 years with unmarried mothers and adopted people. So I'm looking at the experiences of unmarried mothers who underwent closed adoption practices 67 to 87.
Right. So, Donna, you are a blessing to us. Can you see the faces of the people around you? You matter. Your thesis matters. And our job now, through the rest of your life, as you're stuck with us now, we have electronically tagged you, Donna. You are in trouble. So Donna, we are all with you. We want you to look after yourself. We want to see this incredible research reach fruition, because you are the right human at the right time to write this. And can I say, I know I've been dealing with my wonderful midwives this week, but midwives and social worker researchers, I'm slightly biased. You're actually my favourite people, but don't tell anybody. Fantastic. Colleagues, I'm conscious of time. We're about to, for those of you that are coming into Rut Club, we'll see you in 2 minutes. But you are the best in the universe. I'm very emotional. I don't know about everybody else. Donna, you are the star. Not only of this session, you are the star of 2023. And darling, can you let us know how you go? If you can even just send a message to us next week so we know how you've gone.
I'll aim to come in next week and join you, God spares. I'll see you then.
Fantastic. Good energy, everybody. You are a blessing to us all. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Take care. Thank you,
best.
Nye.
You are the best.